All right, man. I think we're live.
We are live. Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is our first live stream on Periscope. This is going to be a live version of the QB List Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Erik Smith. I'm joined by Colin Weatherwax, and we are here to talk some fun stuff today. We're going over the Scott Fish Bowl SFBX, which I'm sure you've seen a ton of on Twitter. We are in the middle of our draft. I am, I think in about the 10th round. Colin's in the 11th, and Colin is actually on the clock. So
Yeah.
before we get into things, Colin, I'm sure you got this pick all figured out, right?
No, definitely not. But I want to tell everyone because me and Erik have been talking to each other pretty much all week about SFBX. And whenever we start to go over his team, I just want everyone to realize how much he waffled on every single pick. Like he would throw 10 names out there and say, I can see myself going with any of these guys. And I'm sitting there telling him pros and cons and pros and cons. And eventually he just picks a guy that's not even on those 10 names. So whereas me, I'll throw, hey, I'm looking at this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. And then like a minute later, okay, I picked this guy.
Yeah, that's accurate. I'm going to blame it on picking on the turn at pick 12 and trying to figure out how many quarterbacks are going to go in the next 22 picks. That has been the bane of my existence. So Colin is accurate here. I have waffled every pick, I think, since I'd say probably Carson Wentz in the third round. So you've called me out there, Colin. I appreciate it. And I think it's going to get a little simpler as it goes because I filled out my roster. But this is a tough format in general for everyone, especially if you're picking on the turn here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be in the middle of the draft, so I don't miss out on those runs as much as you have. And I really like the way that my team has played out. But yeah, it's been fun to watch you waffle on every single pick. And it didn't start with Wentz; it started in round one. Let's be honest.
Oh, round one was a mess. So you are looking right now at my board. Hopefully everyone can see that well. I did not expect Michael Thomas to be there at the end of the first round. I was pretty much set on going quarterback or quarterback, running back, quarterback, tight end, running back, tight end, something like that, depending on who fell. And Michael Thomas sitting there just completely derailed my plans. So having a receiver first wasn't ideal, as we'll get into. Receivers really fell in this format. You can get some amazing ones still where we're drafting in the 11th round. So I did not want to start with one, but Michael Thomas was just too big of a value there at pick 12. So I adapted on the fly, and luckily it's a slow draft, so I had a little time to do that.
Yeah, I know. Michael Thomas was the easy choice. It was your next choice that gave you all the issues.
Yeah, it was. And if you've been in the Discord channel with us, I've been trying to talk people and myself out of Joe Mixon most of the offseason, and that's as a Bengals fan. Mixon, I mean, he's a great player, but his passing game work just hasn't been there so far. So I'm a little hesitant with buying in that he's going to catch a bunch of balls, but maybe with Joe Burrow around, he'll be more involved. So what it really came down to is I did not want to pass on a running back first round. And also on quarterback, I thought that was going to be a lot of work to make up. And I was kind of, my ideal case was Derrick Henry and or Dalvin Cook made it to me there. They went picks 10 and 11 right before me. So that really threw off running backs. And I mean, the running back you got, I think, is just as talented as the one that I got, which is why I didn't like taking a running back there. I think there's a group of about 6 that are pretty equal to Joe Mixon. But I thought I had to take one, even if I was losing a little bit of value. So well, I think we can switch over to yours. I mean, I started out first round Michael Thomas and Joe Mixon. Let's see what that's the Polly Pocket division of the Scott Fish Bowl. Let's switch over to the Popples division here. That's where Colin is, right in the middle.
Yep.
Well, almost in the middle, pick 7. So you started out Alvin Kamara and Miles Sanders. So I think that was probably your dream scenario for the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, we had talked, on our 4 a.m. podcast with Sal, which was a blast. We had talked about, kind of our plans for the first couple rounds in the Scott Fish Bowl. And, of course, I stuck to my plans, whereas you just went completely off the rails. But I pretty much came into the draft just thinking I want Kamara, and if he doesn't fall to me, then I don't know what I'm going to do. So luckily I didn't have to go to that emergency plan because at pick number 3, Dak Prescott came off the board, which was a little surprising. There's a pretty clear-cut top 6, and Kamara is usually that number 6 guy. So, it was kind of risky going into the thing, just kind of thinking, oh, I'm going Kamara for sure, no doubt, and no other plans other than that. But I was able to do that. That was really fun. And then, coming back in the second round, there was a lot of people, or a lot of guys that I was interested in. But Miles Sanders has been my guy. I picked him, I think, pick number 7 in our QB list dynasty startup this past offseason. And getting him in the second round for a guy that's going to be super involved in a playoff caliber offense, where he's pretty much the only running back on the roster that's worth a damn. I'm really excited to pair up Kamara and Sanders to start off this draft.
Yeah, and you can see in yours, Liz Loza, excuse me, from Yahoo, kind of threw things off a little bit, worked out really well for you by taking Dak Prescott number 3 overall.
Yep.
I think maybe later on, as we've seen in more drafts, it's not that crazy of a pick. Dak was pretty consistently in the first round, I think, for the most part. But
right.
She jumped Lamar Jackson there and Saquon Barkley. So that really allowed Kamara to fall to you. What do you do there if Kamara's not there? Take Prescott out. All the obvious ones are ahead of you. Who are you going with? Thomas?
I would panic, honestly. I might have went with one of the tight ends. I know that we talked about how, waiting on tight ends is probably our strategy in this format, just because there's so many of them. And hindsight being 2020, I've missed out on a lot of my tight ends that I was targeting late. So they must have been awake at that 4 a.m. spot, just listening to our strategies, Eric. But yeah, I mean, if Kamara wasn't there, I might have went tight end. I could have went Michael Thomas. There's a whole lot of different ways that I would have went. But I also might have just stayed on the running back trail and went with Dalvin Cook, who ended up going at the end of the round, just because I feel like getting those 2 studs, or at least 1 stud running back in this format, is really important. And as a guy that kind of shuffled in and out Tariq Cohen and James White and Sony Michel in this format last year, I know the value of a top running back in this format.
Yeah, it's my league has drafted them like crazy, drafted quarterbacks like crazy. We actually waited a long time on tight end, so it's really league dependent. We've seen a lot of different builds across all these leagues, and yeah, you have to really figure out how your league's drafting quickly and adapt to it, I would say, because my league, I can switch over to that one real quick, but we did not go on much of a tight end run. You can see there in yellow here. They went pretty slow until you get down to round 9. A couple start trickling in, and then just a huge run there in the 10th round. So I was lucky enough at the end of round 9 to get Mike Gesicki. I thought he was a really good value there. That was another turn right there that Colin had to listen to me waffle on for a while with Gesicki and Sam Darnold. But yeah, just for example, you can see all these tight ends that went there, hardly any up top. So it's really league by league. It's pretty consistently that the elite quarterbacks are flying off the board early. But then it's kind of anything goes after that, other than receiver. So what did you think about receivers here, Colin? I think we both really loaded up on some. I ended up with Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley so far, and you ended up with probably an even deeper group, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Odell Beckham, A.J. Brown. You have Rager now. You're a couple rounds ahead of me. So what do you think about receiver? Do you think we rushed him a little bit, or did we take advantage of the value there?
Yeah, I think we both took advantage of the value. We both ended up with A.J. Brown on our team. With A.J. Brown, I think he ended up as my 3rd or 4th wide receiver, and Odell Beckham was my 3rd or 4th as well. So yeah, I think we both just kind of hopped on that value train of wide receivers, and this is something that I did last year in this format. I know the scoring's a little bit different, but I was able to lock up 4 wide receivers that I can put in my 3 wide receiver spots and lock up a flex position pretty much every week. Now, I know my bye weeks are a little bit of an issue. I have a couple receivers on week 13 bye. That's Chris Godwin and DJ Moore. Also have Rieger and Beckham on week 9 bye. So I'm going to have to mess around with that a little bit, whenever we get closer towards the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, just look at that. I mean, you got 2 running backs at the top, which is something that we had talked about on the podcast as far as our strategy went. And then 4 straight wide receivers, which I was perfectly fine with. Chris Godwin was someone that I did not expect to be there in the 3rd round. So getting him in the 3rd round was great. DJ Moore in the 4th round, Odell Beckham in the 5th, and AJ Brown is my wide receiver number 4 in the 6th round was something that I was not expecting either. So all of those guys are wide receiver 1s for their respective teams. Odell Beckham could be a wide receiver 1 on any given year. He has the talent to do so. And then, A.J. Brown is the wide receiver 1 on his team. So, yeah, getting 4 wide receiver 1s is something that I was really, really happy with.
Yeah, and one thing I like with your team, you have what should be pretty consistent weeks out of Chris Godwin and DJ Moore. Those are going to be kind of your PPR receivers, getting a lot of first downs in this format. Gives you a nice base. And then any of the scary parts, Odell Beckham and A.J. Brown for this year, maybe some of the boom bust capabilities, big play dependent stuff. That's really going to help you when they're your 3 and 4 receiver. You're not counting on them for that weekly production as much as you are if they're 1 or 2. So I really think that's kind of why I liked A.J. Brown as well in this format, because if he's not your number 1 or your number 2, I mean, those boom weeks could win the weeks for you. And if he does, suffer with some volume here, then you can work around that. So, I love that build there. You want to say a little bit more about Rager down there? Was that just best player available, or is that someone you were targeting all along, or do you? Was it just standout value?
Well, I mean, I think I've set the min pick on him. I don't know if you can go to that screen real quick, but we've been talking in the Discord. There's a lot of people that have been, talking about Rieger. And basically for me, and I've been saying this for a while, is that he is my favorite rookie redraft wide receiver. Oh, wow. I'm not even close to the earliest pick. Someone took him in the 7th round. Look at that. I took him in the 10th round. I believe his ADP is right around the 11-12 range. But yeah, he's my favorite redraft rookie wide receiver. The reason I say that is because he's coming in pretty much as the wide receiver 1. I mean, he has to compete with Alshon Jeffrey, Greg Ward, who kind of came on a little bit towards the end of the year, Deshaun Jackson, who's kind of a one-hit wonder and has his own issues going on right now. I understand that there's the 2 tight ends. There's Miles Sanders ahead of him as far as, the guys that are going to be targeted more and more of a focal point. But as the defense starts to shift towards the tight ends and the running back Miles Sanders, that's going to leave open a lot of open spaces and possibilities for Jalen Rieger. And with a quarterback like Wentz, he's been dying for a wide receiver like this that looks to be the complete deal. And I think getting him as my wide receiver number 5 is a real benefit for my team, and I'm really big on him this year.
Great. So what do you think about quarterback? You happy with when you waited, when you took them, all that? Would you do it any differently here? You got just for those on the podcast, you got Burrow in the 7th. I'm happy to see that. Ben Roethlisberger in the 8th and Teddy Bridgewater in the 9th. So this is a format Scott Fishbowl. Teddy Bridgewater is probably a little better in this one than a typical league because of completion percentage bonuses. And he's just a consistent quarterback. Hopefully won't sink you. So what do you think about this mix here of 3 quarterbacks?
Yeah, I will admit that I waffled on Joe Burrow. I'm pretty sure that's my only pick that I waffled on in round 7, but I feel like he's pretty safe as far as a rookie quarterback goes. Whenever you're talking about rookie quarterbacks, they usually have flaws, and Joe Burrow just doesn't look like that kind of guy. He's going to have upside, and he has the weapons around him. I mean, he has Tyler Boyd, he has John Ross, he has A.J. Green, he has T. Higgins, who they drafted, and you mentioned Joe Mixon. Like, that is a really stout, level of group of skill positions. And then as long as the offensive line can keep him upright, I know that's been a big problem in Cincinnati, which of course you know about, Eric, being a Bengals fan. But as long as they can keep him upright, he has some mobility to him. So he seems like a pretty safe floor. Now, I know a lot of people in this format are not going to be comfortable with a guy like Joe Burrow as their QB1. But for me, this really played out perfectly. Like you said, I went Joe Burrow in round 7, Big Ben in round 8, and Teddy Bridgewater in round 9. And I think 2 out of those 3 every single week are going to be viable starters. Big Ben, when healthy, he's coming off an injury. He's another year older. Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning, who is in his same draft class, have already started to show, signs of deterioration. But I just think that Big Ben has – he'll have a couple weeks where he throws those 5 interceptions and you're just like, what the hell, Ben? But I think he has enough upside, especially in this format, to be a viable QB2. And if not, I'll just pivot right to Teddy. Like you said, an efficient quarterback. And in this scoring setting, an efficient quarterback is someone that you really want. And I get a nice little mini stack with him and DJ Moore. So that's something that's also that's another benefit as well. But I can see a few weeks where I will start the wrong quarterback 2 out of these 3. But, as long as the rest of my team, outperforms, their weekly projections, then I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, as someone who had Roethlisberger and Breeze in a dynasty team, I had a whole year where I picked the wrong one every week. So we'll see if that one carries over. We'll see if Roethlisberger carried over his road troubles this year after the injury. But yeah, I mean, the year before the injury, Roethlisberger, I think, led the league in passing attempts and had a huge fantasy year. So we'll find out probably pretty early if his elbow is shot or if he's back. And that's going to be a great value if it's the Roethlisberger of old for sure. So yeah, so you're actually on the clock.
Yep.
I don't know how much time you need here, but I see a pretty big hole at tight end on your roster. I mean, there's always more room for receivers. We
Yep.
can start 3 flex and then the super flex. So you have 5 receivers. You could pick up another receiver and start them, depending on if you want to start a running back. So what are you thinking here on this pick? If you're ready, you can even go ahead and make the pick, and then we can get into my team.
Yeah, so the last pick that we talked about was Jalen Reagor. I went Keyshawn Vaughn in round 11. I'm not huge on him, but he just kind of was the only guy there that was like, okay, if everything breaks right, this could be an everyday flex and possibly a RB2 type of guy. And then in round 13, I had to get, or I think it was round 12, I had to get Latavius Murray. Whenever you draft Alvin Kamara, I think you have to go out of your way and pick up Latavius Murray. If he's out for any reason, I think that Latavius Murray is an automatic RB1. And in some weeks, you might be able to even start, Latavius Murray in a pinch at flex. So, yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. There is a big hole at tight end. And in this league, you have an additional 0.5 points for PPR for tight ends and an additional 0.5 points for a first down. That being said, there was a pretty big tight end run. I missed out on a couple targets like Dallas Goedert a couple rounds ago as well. But I'm looking at the tight end board right now. Right at the top is Irv Smith Jr. And I think that is probably the guy I'm going to go with. I mean, there's guys like Ian Thomas, Jay Sternberger, guys like that are on the board as well. But Irv Smith Jr. just has so much boom potential. And Kyle Rudolph, I know he scored a lot of touchdowns last week or last year, but I think this is Irv Smith Jr.'s time to kind of take over. So I'm gonna make a live pick here. I think I'm gonna go Irv Smith Jr.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think a good thing about Irv Smith Jr. is he actually has some upside. I think there are some safer weekly plays. Maybe you can draft in a round or two that can maybe get you through some boom bust with him if he struggles. So, yeah, I think that's a good call. You might as well take a shot on a tight end. And I think actually Jack Doyle's already gone. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what kind of safe options there are. But like you said, I mean, like Kyle Rudolph, he'll be on the field. There are players out there that'll be on the field if you just need someone getting 5 points a week or something. So
Yeah.
I like Irv Smith. Take a little shot, and he's athletic like a wide receiver is. He could really be one of those difference makers. So I'm on board with it.
Yeah, and Doyle was a huge target for me. I was super upset whenever he got picked in round 12.
That's awfully early, it seems like. Actually, around 11, right?
And then, like you said, I mean, Kyle Rudolph is a guy that I might be able to even, kind of handcuff with Irv Smith Jr. So I could have a pretty decent tight end rotation there. It looks like another tight end just went off the board right after my pick, too. Let me see who it was. Sternberger, right after that. So,
yeah, from the Athletic, Ed Malion. I may have said it wrong, but shout out. So, yeah, he must have been on auto pick, so he was set on Sternberger. I think Sternberger is interesting, and along with TJ Hawkinson, I know we all hate the rookie tight ends. They don't produce. And it seems like the fantasy community is jumping on Sternberger and Hawkinson because they're not a rookie tight end anymore. But both of these players missed a substantial part of the first year. So I feel like we're jumping the gun a little bit here on them. Sure, Sternberger's in his second year, but he barely played. So I don't know. There's a lot of smart people on him. I could be wrong on him, but I still kind of view him like a rookie. He's still got to get his feet wet in the league. So Irv Smith's got a little bit more experience. I think he can contribute more this year.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, Kirk Cousins went pretty high in this draft with this format being so accurate. So as long as he throws a little bit towards Irv Smith Jr., then I'll be okay. I know they're missing Stephon Diggs. They drafted Justin Jefferson, so maybe there's a little bit of a learning curve for him coming into the league. So this could be a nice opportunity for Irv Smith Jr.
Yeah, and he's definitely one of those players that They're gonna. He's hyped. I think maybe some training camp stuff comes out that hypes us up more on him, and he could shoot up draft boards. But that's a great value on him there. I just wanted to show your updated board. Looks like it hasn't quite updated yet, but this is an awesome tool on roto grinders. Everyone's been using it. Josh HDHD on Twitter. He's created this, so shout out to him. But this is just an awesome tool to see all kinds of Scott Fishbowl stuff. So do you have any thoughts next couple rounds on your team? Anything you're going to prioritize over anything else?
I mean, I'll probably dip back into the tight end well, like we've been talking about. But like you said, wide receivers, there just seems to be so deep this year. Like there was a couple guys during that round that I could have seen myself going. And I just don't think that you can have enough. I mean, with 3 wide receiver spots and 3 flex spots, I know one of them is a super flex spot, but you could still put a wide receiver in that spot. And there was a guy that I was actually considering a couple rounds ago whenever I took Latavius Murray and N'Keal Harry that's still on the board. It's Sterling Shepard still on the board, Preston Williams, Brashad Perriman going to New York Jets, where there's pretty much no one else there. Chenault in Jacksonville, Brian Edwards down in Las Vegas for me, Robbie Anderson in Carolina. Like, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, this list for wide receivers. And I think I'm going to have to get a couple more before this is all said and done.
Yep. So, yeah, looking good. Probably time to switch over to my team here for a little bit. But I don't know, any last thoughts? I mean, we'll get back to your team, but anything to wrap it up here?
No, I mean, I think that both of us, kind of zigging while everyone else is zagging towards the tight end position. I think as long as we hit on our later round tight ends, then this could really play very well for us, because while some people will be starting like a tight end 2 in their flex, we'll be starting guys like AJ Brown and Calvin Ridley, and that's just a huge benefit. It's just a huge step up against the competition, for my opinion.
Yeah, I've seen some smart people drafting tight ends really heavily, planning to use tight ends in flex. I get it because of the tight end premium scoring, but I'm right there with you. I'd rather have a running back or a receiver if I can help it. Sure, you don't get that premium scoring, but I don't know. Tight ends just they can get hurt a lot. They need their offense to use them the right way. I mean, that's speaking of my tight end, Mike Gesicki. He's got all the potential for a breakout here. He basically is a wide receiver. They've used him in the slot a ton, but it is still dependent on the offensive coordinator to use him like a receiver, not like a blocking tight end. And it would be hard to imagine that they don't use Gesicki like that, but it is a new coordinator, and you never know. Sometimes these coaches do not use the players the way we think they will. So I agree with you. I'd rather take these receivers and running backs and stick them in the flex, but maybe some of these drafters have seen tight ends just the value there, and they just felt like they had to hammer them. But I've seen some teams with 4 or 5 top probably 15 tight ends, and that's a little too bold for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of flex positions, but I understand the added 0.5 points for first downs and 0.5 points for catches, but there's only so many tight ends in the league that actually have as big of an impact as, a wide receiver 1 or 2 on their team.
Yep, I totally agree. And I don't think they have that upside either, the number 1 receiver. I mean, Calvin Ridley, he's probably going to be good by himself, but if Julio Jones went down, I mean, he is a monster, definitely going to pay off on my 6th round, and there's less opportunities for that to happen for the tight ends, I feel like. So, yep, I'm right there with you. So, yeah, let's get into mine. I talked a decent about my 1st and 2nd round picks, Michael Thomas and Joe Mixon at the 112 and 201 turn. It's just, like I said, really tough picking there. You get 22 picks after your pick, and you have to try to judge the runs that are go on positions here and see what's left. So I thought that put me in the best shape heading into rounds 3 and 4 was to get Michael Thomas and then a running back. And I was really happy for Carson Wentz to come back at pick 12 in the 3rd round. I believe Aaron Rodgers was there as well. He would have been my backup plan. And if Rodgers went. Oh yeah, he did. He went right after me. So yeah, he was my backup plan. But if that didn't work out, I don't know what I was going to do. It's pretty much Wentz or Rodgers, and then I don't know. I don't know what I was going to do. So it worked out. It was a close call, but I think that's a good value on Wentz there. I almost went like a Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson in the 1st round. I even considered stacking Breeze with Michael Thomas, but I just had a real hard time taking a 41-year-old quarterback in the 2nd round of a fantasy draft. I know it's not a keeper league, but that was a tough one for me to pull the trigger on. So, yeah, getting Wentz in the third allowed me to kind of sit back and take values as they fell, and that's where I hammered Mike Evans, 4th round, A.J. Brown, 5th round, and Calvin Ridley in the 6th. Like we said with A.J. Brown, I just love him as a wide receiver 3. He's going to have blow up weeks, and he looks like he might be one of those difference makers that can overcome his offensive environment, which might be low volume. So I loved him there. Mike Evans, I would take Chris Godwin, who you got, over him. I do think he matches better with Tom Brady, closer range option. But if you look at Mike Evans in this format, I mean, he's put up some excellent numbers the last 2 years. And I know it was with Jameis Winston, but I'm betting on him being just a freak athlete, someone who can catch the deep ball with anyone throwing it to him. And I think it would be pretty foolish for them to bring in Brady and have him not feed these 2 receivers. So what do you think just Tampa Bay in general? Because we both bought into this offense. Does this mean you also like Tom Brady as well? Are you just kind of targeting Godwin? Do you like Evans? What do you think on this offense here?
I think I prefer Godwin, and the weird thing about my draft is Evans actually went before Godwin. So, like I said, I was surprised to see Godwin fall to me, and I really wasn't targeting him because I didn't feel like he would make it that far. But to see him come down in the 3rd round was really exciting for me, and I think that both of them are going to have big weeks. They're going to have kind of blow up weeks, but for my money, I think Chris Godwin is going to be more consistent week in and week out, whereas Mike Evans could have, those 30, 40-point games like he's had in the past that just kind of vault you in that week-to-week, type basis. But whereas Godwin, I feel like, is just going to be consistent throughout the whole year. He just has that profile that I think Brady is going to like. I do think that both of their touchdowns, their touchdown potential kind of goes down with the addition of Gronkowski there. I'm kind of in on Gronkowski. I'm not in on the price that he's been going in Scott Fishbowl, but I'm kind of in on him as far as being a tight end 1 this year, just because of the fact that he has that rapport with Brady. He's going to be very involved towards the goal line. And I think having a year off and kind of rest his body, even though he did do some WWE stuff, I think he'll still be able to break away from defenders and make that separation. But yeah, I think the Tampa Bay situation is not going to be as fluid as it was last year. Whenever you had Jameis Winston throwing the ball just up in the air and hoping something good happens. But I do think that the weapons in Tampa Bay are still going to be viable for fantasy.
Yeah, I think I would have to disagree just on Gronkowski. I don't think I'll draft him at all this year. I mean, I get it. He's worth a flyer. It's Brady and Gronk, so I can understand it. But I'm typically out on these players that have missed a year or 2 or whatever. I mean, he's had injuries. He just has a lot of red flags for me. So he might have some boom weeks, but I just don't think he can consistently keep it up over 16 games. So, but yeah, otherwise, I like this offense. I think Brady's good enough to make it happen with these receivers. It may look a little different than with Jameis, but I'm on board, obviously. So, yeah, just pulling up my draft board here. I think if I had a few regrets here, I kind of wish – I think I could have gotten a running back in my Evans, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley section. I kept trying to wait for 1 or 2 to fall, and they just weren't falling. Everyone was picking up the values there. So I think maybe where I took Mike Evans there in the 4th, I would have been jumping them, but maybe I could have taken a Chris Carson or a James Conner. It would have felt awfully early, though, but you see they went later on in the 4th round. Definitely did not want Leonard Fournette, who went right after him. But really, everyone in this
– You were sniped on Jonathan Taylor, right?
Oh, yeah. Jonathan Taylor was a painful one. Yeah, 3rd round, I was taking Taylor. I was hoping Taylor and Wentz right there at 3 and 4, and he went the pick before me. Same with Dalvin Cook, like I said before. I've been sniped on a few running backs here that have hurt pretty bad, so I've tried to adapt with the receivers. But, yeah, everyone in the 4th and 5th round almost. James Conner, Chris Carson, Cam Akers, Swift to a lesser extent, Mark Ingram. I was hoping to get all of them back there in the 4th round. I probably should have just taken one in the 3rd, or hoping to get one of them in the 5th round. I should have taken one of them in the 4th, but it's hard to judge these runs, like I said, and I still got really good players that I love this year, so I'm not too big of a problem with that. And then I was hoping to get Kareem Hunt there at the 12. Geez, I'm sorry, I can't get these numbers right here, but at the 7-8 turn. He got sniped a couple picks before me, so I drafted. He was the it was the high draft pick for Tevin Coleman when I took him. First pick of the 8th round. That was right when the Raheem Mostert news broke that he's asking for a trade. This isn't so much that I think Tevin Coleman's going to be a league winner all of a sudden, but I was pretty certain he was not going to make it back to me in the 9th round. And you look at the other players in the 9th round, Darius Geis, James White, Damian Williams. I just thought Coleman had the best shot at taking over that backfield. If something happens to Mostert, if he gets traded, if he holds out, whatever happens, he's out of the picture. They traded Breda. They just have Jeff Wilson Jr., who's kind of goal line special teams player, and then a couple undrafted free agent rookies, Ahmed and Hasty. So I don't know. I think Coleman's got a shot to get a bunch of 15 carry weeks early on, and that 49ers running game is one to invest in. So it might have been a round or two early on Tevin Coleman, but that was right when the news broke. So I just figured, hey, maybe it was a sign. I better take advantage of it.
Yeah, because you had been on him previously. I know you had been talking to me about how much you like Tevin Coleman this year. But the big thing for me is you're going to have to pick someone at the running back position here pretty soon that you feel pretty confident in that will give you, some points week in and week out. Because for me, I have Kamara, Sanders, Vaughn, and Latavius Murray. And out of those 4, I feel like I could start 3 if I have to in a pinch. And in a league like this, whenever bye weeks come up, whenever injuries come up, you're going to have to play your 3rd or 4th running back at some points, and you're going to have to make sure that it's someone that's not going to get you a 0. And that's why we kind of talked about, on our podcast on Monday morning at 4 a.m. with Sal about, kind of hammering those top end running backs. And I know you got sniped on Cook, you got sniped on Taylor, but I think maybe in the 4th round, whenever you went Evans, you might have been better, going with a guy like Carson or going with a guy like Akers, who I know you like as well, just so that way you kind of get ahead of the curve as far as running back goes. And I know hindsight's 2020, and we've seen how far these wide receivers just keep falling into our laps, and it just kind of doesn't make sense, and you just automatically think, oh, I got to take him. I mean, that's just incredible value. But whenever you start to look at your team, it's kind of hard to see you're starting, 2 running backs every week.
Yeah, it's I put myself in a pickle here for sure. I'm going to be filling the flex spots with receivers. I do have a lot of later round targets that I do like. We'll talk more about them later, but so I still have plenty on my board that I'm happy to take here as my 3, 4, 5 running backs. Like I said, I was trying to decide between Tevin Coleman and Damian Williams. I almost got Williams to come back to me. He was just 2 picks short, so I missed out on a lot of values that I would have taken easily when they got there. And I didn't want to get shut out on quarterback. I wanted to make sure I had 3 solid quarterbacks. Sam Darnold.
Yeah, let's talk about your quarterbacks.
Yeah, I've got a little flack because Carson Wentz and Joe Burrow have the same bye week, week 9. The way I see it, that's only 1 week I need to figure out. So, I'll have Wentz and Burrow all year. I can spell Darnold in when Burrow has a bad matchup. And, I don't love Darnold's matchup in week 9. It is against the Patriots. So I may just have to punt week 9. We'll see what happens. But no, that's a ways to go. If
You'll be out of it by then.
Yeah, I'll be cruising towards that bye. So don't worry. But no, I mean, I don't know. It's a ways to figure out. If someone gets hurt and a backup hits waivers, I can scoop them up. So I would rather have, if I'm going to have a problem week 9 quarterback, it gives me some time to figure it out. So I'm not stressing that as much as some people are. And I think if I hadn't taken Darnold there, Haskins was the last one who I felt pretty confident that he could start the entire year. Even Haskins has probably some questions, but after him, it's Tyrod Taylor and Herbert. It is Tua and Fitzpatrick. It's the Bears quarterbacks. So as you can see, Tyrod Taylor went in the 2nd pick of the 11th round. Wow. I was strongly considering taking Gesicki and Gallup there at the 9-10 turn, and then trying to get whichever combination of Tua, Fitzpatrick, or Tyrod and Herbert coming back. But I don't know. We'll see. There hasn't been as much of a run as I thought there would be with people scooping up QB3s, but Taylor's already gone, so it kind of takes that combo off the table for me. And then that's also 2 more roster spots at quarterback that I have to, tie up at that position. So I just kind of thought Darnold was the simplest solution other than the week 9 situation. That gives me 3 quarterbacks that, barring injury, they're going to be starting all year.
Yeah, and For me last year, whenever it came to quarterbacks, I drafted Lamar, I drafted Stafford, and I drafted Nick Foles. Just kind of thinking that I had two, upper end quarterbacks, and I had a pretty, strong feeling about Nick Foles being at least a bye week fill in. And then, of course, he gets injured, so he was an automatic cut for me. I ended up picking up Ryan Tannehill, held on to him just before he got the job. I cut him, but there were a few guys on the waiver wires last year like Jacoby Brissett, backups that kind of made their way into the lineup. I believe even Mason Rudolph for the Steelers, and both of those guys went for full fab dollars. So they went for $100 of $100 budgets. And so anytime a backup quarterback gets their job or gets a shot in this format, they're going to be scooped up and they're going to be super expensive. So if you have a couple guys that you like, I think rostering four quarterbacks coming out of the draft is something that I like to do in a format like this. Just pick a couple guys that you think could end up with a job. And that's why, early in the year I picked up Tannehill because I just thought that Mariota would eventually lose his job and Tannehill would come in. And I didn't think he'd do what Tannehill did. But that being said, I thought that he would be, competent and possibly a guy that I could throw in as my super flex. And of course I cut him before he got the job. So
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. I've had that with Derrick Henry happen. Not the same situation, but cutting him before the breakout, that's always fun. So
yeah.
let's get that's the wrong one. Actually, I didn't need to change anything. Well, let's go back to your draft board here. I just wanted to show some of the trends that are going on and just overall what strategies you've liked here as I learn how to manipulate all this stuff. So did you see any other strategies from your league mates, though, that you were like really jealous of, or are you pretty happy with the way you did things?
I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way it went for me. Like I said, as far as the quarterback position went, and that's a huge, tilt of the league standings in this type of format. I think it couldn't have gone any better for me. Just kind of waiting out quarterback and getting the three that I did. Now, if I would have ended up with someone other than Bridgewater, and I'd have had to choose between like a guy like Minshew or Tua or Haskins, I would have been a little bit more upset. But Teddy was a guy that I was actually targeting. In the eighth round, I was really considering Ben and Drew Lock and possibly Daniel Jones, but Drew Lock and Daniel Jones went, back to back, second and third before me. So ending up with Ben Roethlisberger was someone that I was targeting anyways. And like I said, as far as running back goes, got my two studs. I got a guy in Vaughn who could possibly end up with a lot more carries than people think. Or could just be the passing down back in a Tom Brady offense. And in a Tom Brady offense, getting the passing down back is not such a bad thing.
Yep. And you can really see in your draft here, it was really nice drafting up at the front of these drafts. You look at the second round running backs, Joe Mixon at the 2.1, and then Nick Chubb all the way down at 210, even Eckler at 3.3, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs in the third round. You could get pretty close to the same running back in the second round towards the end as you could the top. So it was really nice drafting. Probably 1 through 6, you got a nice break. 1 through 7 worked out perfectly for you because, like I said earlier, Miles Sanders or Joe Mixon, I would be just as happy with both of them. So I loved your start there. Looking at one of the fan drafts, Carly Del Don, that's a pretty nice start there. Barkley, Kenyon Drake, Jonathan Taylor. I know a lot of people have some issues with Jonathan Taylor. He doesn't have maybe the pass catching pedigree that some standout fantasy running backs do. But I don't think he's going to have any problem beating out Marlon Mack. That's an offense in Indianapolis with a great offensive line, a good coach, good play calling. They got Phillip Rivers, who another Wisconsin running back in Melvin Gordon, made him into a pass catcher. He wasn't a big pass catcher coming out of college. Not saying that means that's going to happen here, but I just think Taylor's going to catch some passes just having Rivers around. And if that line blocks like he can, he could have a monster year. So that really hurts me even more, seeing that I missed him by 1 pick in the third round when I see he went 3-4 overall in your draft. So I guess you were pretty locked into receiver there, I would imagine. Was there any running back in the third round you would have taken to start 3 running backs?
No. As soon as, guys like Taylor, Eckler, and Jacobs came off the board, I was pretty set going wide receiver, and just kind of thinking back to my strategy last year and how easy it was to set my lineup every week. There's people that are going to be looking at their flex position and thinking of guys like CeeDee Lamb as their first flex position. Well, my guy like Jalen Reagor is going to be like my second or last flex position. So, I just feel like there's such a big advantage getting 4 stud wide receivers that you can lock in those top 3 wide receivers every week, and you even have a flex position already filled with one of those, wide receiver ones is what I want to call them, because each of them is a wide receiver one on their respective team. Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Odell Beckham Jr., and AJ Brown, they all are the main wide receiver on their respective team. Now, I know there's Jarvis Landry in Cleveland, and he had a better fantasy year, but like I'll say with Odell Beckham, I'm enamored by his talent, just like you are, Eric. I think that he has the talent to be a wide receiver one in fantasy, like the wide receiver one in fantasy. It's just, can Baker get him the ball? Can he be, involved enough in the offense to be that guy each week? So, like you said, counting on him as my wide receiver 3 makes me feel a lot better. If I would have chosen him as my wide receiver 1, I'd be a little bit more hesitant and probably, going out of my way to draft probably 5 or 6 more wide receivers. But to start off like that, to get the quarterbacks that I got, and to have a little bit of flexibility outside of the tight end position moving forward in this draft is something that I really wanted, and something that I felt I did pretty well with, up to this point of the draft.
Yeah, and Kenny Heidenhove is in our Discord channel. He's got an app here. Looks like Matt Spencer put it together, or on Twitter. It projects our weekly starter points, which I believe is unfair because you've drafted more players, so you have more starters in there. But you're projected for 157.3 weekly starter points. I'm at 143.8, but I think you've got a couple extra players than me, so I'm not going to give you too much.
Sure. Yeah, that's it.
Oh man, so yeah, I have had some slow drafts the last couple days. We have yesterday I did not make a pick, and I've kind of settled into 2 picks a day the last couple days. Other than that, so it's been pretty slow for me. Colin's league has outpaced mine for sure.
Yeah,
so
picking on the turn is pretty brutal too, because I know you wait all day to draft, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna pick these 2 guys in like two or 3 minutes, and then I'm done for like a day. Like, no, that's not fun to me. I like drafting in the middle.
Yeah, it's been rough, but it's still a lot of fun. It's just waiting slowly to watch, 5 straight running backs come off the board when you're hoping for one. It's pretty brutal at times. So, all right, well, so we could talk a little bit about some upcoming picks. I know we probably don't want to give them away, but we could probably just bring it back to regular fantasy for anyone who's listening who is not in the Scott Fish Bowl. But just kind of later round targets, anyone just really stand out, or do you think any position is especially deep right now?
I mean, so I'm just going to go back to the wide receiver position. Like, there's just so many wide receivers that I'm interested in, and stocking up the top ones like we did, it kind of makes it to where, should I really take a wide receiver again? Like, stuff like that. But I'm going to even look, even further down. There's guys like Curtis Samuel, that if everything broke right, if something were to happen to Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore, he could have a pretty good, season in Carolina there. Robbie Anderson, like I said, James Washington is a guy that I like in Pittsburgh. I know a lot of people are on the Deontay Johnson train, but I also like what I saw from James Washington last year. Alan Lazard in Green Bay. They didn't draft a wide receiver in the draft, somewhat famously. So somebody's going to have to play opposite of Devontae Adams, and maybe that's Alan Lazard. Hunter Renfrow going even a little bit later could be a huge target for Derek Carr there. Dede Westbrook was a guy that everyone was on last year. Larry Fitzgerald, the ageless wonder. I know you love you some Larry Fitzgerald. So, I mean, there's just so many targets at the wide receiver position that I don't know, when to contain myself. I don't know when to say, okay, just kind of focus on other positions. But one other guy that I'll definitely say I'm interested in, Jarrett Stidham at the quarterback position. I think he's going to be relatively cheap. As my QB4, I feel pretty confident that, if something were to happen to Cam, or even if Jarrett Stidham wins the job out of camp, which isn't completely out of the realm of possibility, that's a guy that I'm going to go out and target, and possibly Andy Dalton as well.
Oh, that's fun. Andy Dalton, huh? You get the Burrow Dalton stack. Oh wait, different teams
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, different teams.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we go 22 rounds, so there's some players we're picking here that would not go in most leagues. That's for sure. So, I just switched over to my team here. Obviously, what I really liked about my 9-10 turn was I locked up a tight end. I feel pretty confident with, and I locked up my third quarterback. So I feel like I can go a lot of different directions coming up. I definitely need to start hammering running backs. That's for sure. There are some other people out there who have also not spent a lot of draft capital at running back, so it makes me feel a little better. But I've got work to do. Joe Mixon and Tevin Coleman. That's all I've got at running back. So there are some names out there though I like. Matt Breida's still out there. He's got a shot at some significant snaps in Miami. Jordan Howard's already been picked, which was a little surprising to me. But Breida's there, probably the more explosive option with a little more pass catching ability. I think he's a good dart throw. Zach Moss in Buffalo, he's got more of a between the tackles, goal line type profile than Singletary does. And they were giving Frank Gore a lot of work last year. So even as he was kind of fading, he was still getting work. And if you sub Zach Moss into that role, he may really have a nice touchdown role. Josh Allen really overperformed touchdowns close to the goal line. He had more touchdowns than Lamar Jackson did inside like the 5-yard line. So I would expect that to regress a little bit. And if Moss has that role, he could get you a lot of touchdowns, which those are the sorts of things I'm looking for right now, are either a nice pass catching role or a nice touchdown role, just something for some consistent points. I could also take a shot on Latavius Murray, Tony Pollard, just kind of stash guys like that on the bench. And then Darrell Henderson, I mean, I don't like him that much as a player, but he is going super late in these drafts. And I think for his price, you kind of have to take a shot on him. I mean, if Cam Akers turns out to be a little lackluster, or if he nurses some injuries or whatever, Darrell Henderson could really have a big role. I don't have any faith that Malcolm Brown, this far into his career, is all of a sudden going to have a big workload. So I think it's all Henderson or Akers here, and I would prefer Akers, obviously, but he's more of a 5th-round guy, and Henderson is going in the 12th, 13th, 14th round. So I might take a shot on him. And then there's more fun names that I like, Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly for the Chargers. So even though it's ugly, there are some nice darts I can throw here. And I don't know. I hope I can still make it work. I only have to start 2 running backs. So if I can keep bolstering the receiver position, maybe I just find 2 running backs I like and rotate receivers in those last flex spots.
Yeah, I like that Zach Moss call for sure. There's a whole lot of running backs that you could throw a dart at that could definitely hit. Darrell Henderson, I would think if you're the Cam Akers owner, you're jumping ADP to draft Darrell Henderson just because of the hype on him last year. There's a lot of hype on Cam Akers this year, but what if something happens to him, or what if he doesn't pan out and he's just another Darrell Henderson, and Henderson actually gets a run at the job? So I think that's a good call as well. So we got someone in the live comments, is Mark Salazar, who's over at QB List. He says it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Andy Dalton is fantasy viable just because he's a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I do not think that that's the case. I think that, if something were to happen to Dak, is there a better backup in the NFL right now than Andy Dalton? Throw him into the best situation that he's ever been in. In his previous stint in Cincinnati, he has never had this much talent around him. I can only think that that's going to be something that's a little bit different for Andy Dalton. So, and he said he was talking about Cam Newton too. So I think Stidham could definitely win that job. I don't see why not. I mean, Erik, you talked about it to me. You said, why would they pay him absolutely nothing? I mean, what do they have to lose? If he's not performing, if he doesn't look like Cam, and if he can't run, they're going to just trust Cam Newton's arm. Like, that just doesn't sound like the Patriots. If something's not working out, they're going to make a change. And I think Stidham could be a guy that you could pick as your 4th quarterback in this format, and he could possibly start some games for you.
Yeah, my big thing with Cam was just that that deal is so cheap. Like, there's got to be a major. I mean, we know he has injury red flags, but I find it hard to believe nobody took a shot on him. If it was just your typical injury, somebody would still pay him more than that. So I don't know. I wonder if there's a lot more there than we know about. And like you said, if he's not running, he can get by just throwing the ball, but that running is a huge part of his game. And I'm not sure with this pass catching core that just Cam Newton chucking the ball around the yard is going to get it done. Maybe drop him in on a more explosive offense like Dallas, maybe. Maybe we're talking then. But it's just that deal is so cheap. I mean, it's like backup Andy Dalton type money. So there's got to be something going on. I mean, I know everyone talks about his attitude, but I just can't believe that teams are that focused on his attitude that nobody would pay him. So I'm just assuming he's got some injuries that are lingering and could sap his upside, but maybe we're wrong here. But I'm not going to draft him where people are drafting him, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's been going relatively high in the Scott Fish Bowl. I think he went in the 5th round in mine and 7th in yours, or maybe vice versa. But yeah, that's a little bit too steep of a price for me. And so, and also during this, I got a couple messages in our Popples Division Twitter DMs. Says, was hoping Irv would make it back to me, and someone else said me too. So I guess I got a good pick finally. It only took me 11, 13 rounds, but it finally got me a good pick.
Yeah, it's always it's reassuring when you snipe somebody for sure. So
for sure.
Yeah. So all right. Well, that's been a pretty good rundown. There was something else I was just about to jump on there, but it's completely lost my mind. So it's been a long week. We've been drafting all week. Still haven't quite recovered from Monday. I can only imagine what the SFB Podathon guys are going through.
Oh, I can't imagine. Although the next day I saw Sal taking his daughter out for either a dinner or something. I'm like, dude, how can you? I didn't even make it through the work day. I left work early, came home, barely made it home, and then slept for 3 hours.
Yep. I needed to take a day off anyway, so I just didn't work. So I got to.
Must be nice.
But I still didn't sleep that much, so whatever. What I was going to say, one of the backup quarterbacks that I like, especially drafting Michael Thomas first round, I've contemplating taking a real late flyer on your boy Jameis Winston.
Hey,
could give me the sneaky Winston Michael Thomas stack if anything happens to Breeze. Missed time last year, so that would be an interesting offense if Winston was chucking it around. So I don't know, maybe late round I'll throw him on the roster and stash him as long as I can. I don't know. What do you think about that?
You know what? I don't hate it. I really don't. But that comment actually has me thinking, and I'm actually doing some research right now. I'm trying to see how MFL, which is my fantasy league, has Taysom Hill. It looks like they have him as a quarterback. So
yep.
That might be interesting, actually. I wonder if they actually give out additional positions during the year. But I actually think I rostered Taysom Hill last year as a backup quarterback for me. I never got the guts to put him in my lineup, but that could change. I mean, just with the way that they've been talking this offseason, with what he showed last year, would it be that bad? If you're in a pinch and you have 2 starting quarterbacks and on bye in week number 9, like someone else on this podcast, could you throw Taysom Hill in as your QB1 and just hope that he gets a breakaway touchdown on a reception or on a run, or maybe even throwing it? You just never know.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, you'll get the bonuses for first downs for sure. You'll get the touchdowns, but
he's a guy that'll definitely play on 3rd and short or 4th and short.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's a conflicting player. I mean, everything they say about him thinks they really value him, but they really aren't using him that much. So
and then they go out and find Jameis Winston and Teddy Bridgewater last year. So
yeah, it's pretty perplexing. But yeah, I wish he was a tight end. That would be fun.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, because if he was a tight end, if he was ranked as a tight end in this format, man, he would actually be a guy that I would go out of my way to get.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know how long you got, Colin. I mean, we could just go into hour 2 if you want, but I figure what would you say your takeaways are from this draft that everyone can apply to their leagues? Not just the Scott Fish Bowl. Just you're getting ready for your drafts. Maybe players you need to research more, or just kind of overall positional tiers. What do you think just for the common fantasy league this year?
So I think, coming into this, we knew that we needed a couple stud running backs, and I was the one that actually took that advice and put it towards my draft, whereas you didn't. But
rookie mistake.
Yeah, rookie mistake. Yeah, we'll give you that. But there's just such a lull in that middle tier of running backs that you just want to avoid. I know there's some people that do like Todd Gurley this year. I'm just a little too, drawn away from the injury concerns, moving to a new team, no really off season. So a whole new offense that he has to learn pretty much by himself. And he's going at a price, in the third or fourth round where you have to pay RB2 type money for him. Leonard Fournette is another guy, uncertain situation. There's a relatively high chance that he could be cut from the Jaguars. Like there's a lot of different guys in that backfield, like Chris Thompson coming in, who's going to take away from his passing down role. Raquel Armstead, who did a couple flashes last year, and I just don't have enough faith that Leonard Fournette can be a solid RB2 week in and week out. And then you just keep going down the list. Le'Veon Bell was not efficient last year. Devin Singletary, they drafted Zach Moss. John Connor, coming in off of a pretty much lost season last year, and Big Ben coming back, they might just sling it around. So I think if you miss out on that top tier of running backs like completely, it might just be well worth it just to kind of punt the position, go after a guy like Mark Ingram and maybe stack him with a guy like Dobbins. Maybe even get Damian Williams late just in case Edwards-Helaire doesn't pan out. Maybe even your boy Tevin Coleman, or guys like that, Ronald Jones, Alexander Madison, DeAndre Swift, Kareem Hunt. I'd much rather take a flyer on those guys later than pay a third or fourth round price tag on running backs that I'm super uncertain about.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's what the strategy I tried to go for. I would say if you are doing that, you may need to overdraft some of these running backs. There are, once you get past those elite ones, and if you're skipping that tier you just mentioned of the Gurleys, Bells, some of those players that their coaches seem to hate, like Bell and Fournette, if you're going to skip that whole tier and jump into the Akers, Ingram, Dobbins range, there's only so many of those running backs there. And if you try to play value too much like I did, you may just miss out on them. So that's maybe the downside of that strategy, is you might have to really jump up their ADP a little bit. Yeah, I think my big takeaway is that, and I've been saying it fairly consistently, but rookies are really dropping down draft boards, running backs and receivers. And I think if you put in your time and you really like one of them, if you can pick the right ones, you're going to get some steals here.
Rieger.
Yeah, I mean, whoever it is, I mean, these rookie receivers are going super late. I mean, I'm looking at your draft here. You got Rieger in the 10th round.
Yep.
Where did Lamb went in the 10th? Has Judy gone yet?
Yeah, Judy went in the 12th.
12th round.
Yep.
Ruggs went in the 12th.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Jefferson,
so players that went in that range is like Golden Tate went around there, like Edelman. I mean, they're inflated a little bit because of the scoring format, but if you could hit one of those receivers, that's going to pay off huge. And I think the running backs are really reasonable prices too. Your league, Akers went in the 5th round. I think that's totally reasonable. Dobbins in the 7th round. So I don't know. I think if you can really study up on your rookies, pick a couple you like, and pick them off in drafts, you're going to get some values, because I'd rather take shots on them than some of these people you've talked about that we just don't want anything to do with this year. I mean, I like Geis. I understand why people like Geis, but I would rather take my shot on a rookie running back that doesn't have a massive injury red flag and let someone else deal with Geis.
Now, what I know your thoughts on handcuffing in general, but whenever it comes to rookies, like, I'm looking at this draft board, and pretty much everyone that drafted one that has a questionable situation, whether it be Edwards-Helaire and Damian Williams, J.K. Dobbins and Ingram, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson, like none of them drafted both of them. What are your thoughts on that? Like, if you draft one of those questionable guys, are you going out of your way, kind of like I did with Latavius Murray to back up Alvin Kamara? Are you going out of your way to handcuff them, or no?
Well, luckily with Joe Mixon, I don't know who the handcuff is, so I don't have to worry about that too much. Bernard's technically the handcuff, but I don't think he's going to get that work. But I hate handcuffing when it's like I'm going to take Saquon Barkley and I'm going to handcuff him with Wayne Gallman. That's what I don't like.
Right.
I just have no faith that someone like that is going to really break out into that role. Even if Barkley gets hurt, who knows who's going to take over. So I don't like that kind of handcuffing. If you're talking Kamara and Latavius Murray, I love it. If Kamara goes down, we know Murray's going to come in. He's going to be an RB1. So those are the situations I like it. I think there's a case to be made, maybe before the Mostert news, of not taking both Mostert and Tevin Coleman because it's going to hurt your value. Like even if you do hit, you're kind of wasting a kind of high pick on one. I think it does make sense to take stands at points and draft the one that you want. And if you hit right, you have a bigger payoff kind of. But I'm not against it. I think Dobbins and Ingram could definitely be an interesting one just because that upside is huge in Baltimore, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like if I took Aaron Jones, I think I would certainly be looking at Dylan later on just in case something happened to him. So those are the situations where one of them's cheap and there's a pretty clear backup that we can project because we're not always as good projecting who the backup is when an injury actually occurs,
Yeah, of course. It's just for me, like if I'm spending a second, third round pick on guys like Chubb, Edwards-Helaire, guys like that, I would probably go out of my way to get a guy like Kareem Hunt, where if Chubb goes down, you're getting an RB1. With Edwards-Helaire, you're kind of uncertain on how he's going to perform in his rookie year, and with that uncertainty, you go with Damian Williams. And the reason I bring that one up is because if you look at the board, the person that drafted Edwards-Helaire in the 3rd round, they went with Drew Lock in the 8th round, and the pick right after that was Damian Williams. Now, I understand it's a completely separate position. It's your quarterback position, and for that team, it's actually their QB1. So I completely understand going quarterback there, but you have to know that Damian Williams is not going to make it back to you. So that's just kind of what I'm looking at whenever you're spending such a high pick on a questionable situation at best. Are you going out of your way to kind of handcuff that?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a ton of different ways you can attack it, so it's interesting. I mean, you could even just start stealing other people's handcuffs later on here.
I think that's what everyone's doing.
Yeah, so it's always a bit of chicken. You don't know if people aren't looking for Madison because they don't have Dalvin Cook, or if they're just really wanting to hurt you if Cook does get hurt. So it's pretty fun when you get to the later drafts. And yeah, I'm usually against handcuffing, but there are definitely times when it makes sense. So.
Yeah. Guy in the chat said get McFarland if you draft Connor. So that's another guy that you can get super late if you draft James Conner. So I'm perfectly fine with that one too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fact they drafted him does mean that he's
the backup.
Yeah, I mean we've had this every year, whether it was Benny Snell or Samuels the year before.
Jalen Samuels.
And I remember looking over this roster.
Wasted on Samuels.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember looking over this roster. I mean, they've taken like a 3rd or 4th round running back like 4 years in a row. I don't know what they're doing, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, I mean, I guess
one of them's got to hit, right?
Yeah. McFarland's the new shiny toy, so that probably does make sense. And if you remember Connor, he was not impressive his rookie year, and then he looked really good his 2nd year. So maybe we shouldn't give up on Benny Snell yet, but I think he's even less of an athlete than Connor is. So no, that's probably a good call, especially in a draft like this. I mean, 22 rounds, you've got room for McFarland on your roster. So completely on board with that one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think about receivers? Do you like taking a couple on the same team? I know it's not really handcuffing, but if something happened to one of your receivers, do you like having maybe a 3rd or 4th receiver on that same team?
I mean, whenever we were just talking about it, like one of the things that's kind of jumping out to me is the Carolina situation. I mean, I have DJ Moore. I drafted him in the 4th round. I paired him with Teddy Bridgewater in round 9. And I'm looking at the board, and Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson are still available. And here we are. Almost done with the 13th round. So I think that's, one of those guys. I'll create an opinion on which one I think is a lot either better for this format, or a guy that Teddy Bridgewater could lock in on if DJ Moore were to go down. But I think even both of them could have, a solid role on the team itself. It's just, do I feel comfortable starting them week in and week out?
Right. Yeah, I was just about to pull up your ADP here, who's left at receiver. So, the page keeps refreshing here. So hang on a second.
And then other than that, I mean, even in Pittsburgh, I drafted Ben Roethlisberger. I talked about James Washington a little bit earlier. He's a guy that I might throw a dart at. But as far as handcuffing the rest of my receivers, AJ Brown, there really isn't anybody that I think could slide in for him if anything were to happen to him. Godwin, there's so many talented bodies on that roster that I don't think obviously if you miss time, then he would be missed, but I just can't put my finger on who would, gain the most if you were to miss time.
Mm-hmm. And any interest? If you mentioned, I'm sorry, I've been clicking a bunch of screens here, but Brandon Ayuk with the Deebo Samuel injury. Any interest in him? I'm not quite sure what to think about Ayuk just being a rookie in this weird off season, and I don't know if he's ready to be a number one receiver. I kind of liked him more when Deebo was there to take the heat off of him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm huge on him, but at some point you have to look at talent and how far talent is falling in a draft like this, and that's kind of what we've been doing with the wide receiver position this whole time. If Ayuk has a pretty good path to targets, then I think so. But then whenever you go and compare him with guys like N'Keal Harry, I see Antonio Brown on this. That just makes me laugh.
You going in this year?
I mean, I might. I don't know. I see him this high on ADP, and that tells me no. But it's Antonio Brown. I don't think I can quit him. Hunter Renfrow is a guy that I'll definitely go after as well. I think I like Chenault a lot more than I like Ayuk, just with the situation down there in Jacksonville. I think D.D. Westbrook has carved out a role in the slot. DJ Shark obviously has a spot on the outside, and who's going to kind of play that other opposite side of Shark. So that could be a guy that I go after. And I'm not really as nervous to go rookie wide receiver as apparently a lot of people are.
No, I'm right there with you. Renfrow, man, he's one. We've talked about it, but I think I would have taken him everywhere if they hadn't drafted so many people at receiver.
Yeah, I know.
Pass catching running backs, re-signed Richard. I mean, there's just so much competition, but he is the definition of a Derek Carr target. So, all right. Well, we're coming up over an hour, so I'll let you get out of here, Colin. Hopefully this comes across pretty well on the podcast. I'll see how when we get it all edited up. I think we decided to do this about 3 hours ago, so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, though. We got to get our feet wet with the live streaming, so this was a good first one to do it. So Colin is at Weatherwax13 on Twitter. I'm at Erik Smith QBL. The site is at the QB list, and we'll probably get I think we'll get probably another Scott Fish Bowl recap on Monday. I bet I'll get one out. So check out the site for that. And then we got the draft guide coming up. If you are interested, if you want to join the Discord, see all the cool stuff that we do with our supporters and staff, go to our website, click on PL Plus up there, and you can join the Discord. You get ad-free, all kinds of stuff. Nothing's behind a paywall, but if you want to be a part of the Discord, it's part of Pitcher List Plus. So, and a big benefit of that is you get to join in with all the Pitcher List stuff. So if you like fantasy baseball, it's a great 2-for-1. So
there you go. Yeah, and we're hopefully going to be doing some more of these live streams. So we got a couple comments during the live streams. We'd like to get a lot more interaction. So make sure you're following the main site at the QB list. So that way you can get some notifications whenever we go live. And like I said, we want to do these live streams. So that way, come Sunday night, whenever we do our What We Saw podcast, we can have a lot of interaction with everyone on Twitter and possibly on some other platforms as well. So we're getting our feet wet with this one, but we hope to do it a lot more going forward for sure. And then make sure you check out our site. We wrote up a couple of our rounds. Our round picks, me and Erik. So, if you're interested in more evaluation of our teams, just check out the website as well.
Yep, sounds great. And yeah, those Sunday night What We Saws are perfect for a live stream because we start at halftime of the Sunday nighter. So we get the podcast usually out about midnight. But if you basically want to hear it ahead of time, you can watch us. And assuming there's a football season, we're all still hoping. So that'd be a lot of fun. We'd have some comments, watch the game together, talk the games for the day, and I'm really looking forward to that. So fingers crossed. So thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone who joined us on the live stream. And who knows, maybe next week we'll do another one of these for the Scott Fish Bowl picks. So
who knows? We'll probably decide a couple hours beforehand.
Right. It depends on how our days at work work.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great night. Have a good weekend, and see you next time.